Hi there and welcome to the channel. My name is Tom and I am your personal headhunter. In today's video, we are going to be talking about my top 5 interview techniques. These are things that I think you need to nail in order to give you the best chance possible of getting the job that you want. I've actually used these techniques to get jobs in the past, and in some instances, I've found out that I didn't even really want the job afterwards, but because of these techniques, I have actually ended up being offered the job anyway. So I want to jump into this with you. I'm going to give you my top 5, and then I'm going to give you one sneaky bonus one at the end. So make sure you stick around for that. So point number 1 is do your research. Make sure that when you go into this interview process, you are thoroughly and completely prepared. You may not have a full structure. You may not know exactly what it is that you're going into. For instance, it could be that your first interview is just an initial discussion, a conversation, a meet and greet style of interview. It might be that you're being thoroughly grilled and really formally put through your paces by the interviewer. It might be that your first meeting is actually a team gathering. Hey, why don't you come down, meet the team for a few drinks, because perhaps you've got a headhunter that's done some qualification and questions with you or been through your CV, and so you are being presented as a candidate. Whatever the structure is, do your preparation ahead of time. If you fail to prepare, then you can, as everyone knows, prepare to fail. So what do I mean by preparation? Well, find out exactly who is going to be there. Maybe you can't get the names of everybody, but you can find out where they sit within the organization, where they fit within the business. Are they in sales? Are they in marketing? Are they above you? Are they a peer to you? Are they perhaps a part of the team that you might be ending up leading and heading up? Find out who the audience is, because then you can start thinking about some of the challenges, some of the opportunities, and some of the strategies that they're going to need your expertise for. You can also start to think, and this is my second point, about some of the answers that you might give, but I'm going to come back to that in a second. Another area of preparation that you should really think about is within the team, within the organization, within the business, what are some of the challenges that they're having? What are some of the problems that they might be facing? You may not have been told anything, either by the recruiter or on the job advert, but just think more broadly. Spend some time sitting, analyzing, assessing, look at their competitors, look at their broader market, look at the industry. Take some time to think really carefully. What is it that this business could be struggling with? What are the challenges that they are facing, and how can I help solve them? Point number 1, do your research. Point number 2, practice. Practice your answers. Everybody says the first sign of madness is talking to yourself. Well, I'm sorry, but that is nonsense. The first sign of a really successful interview is practicing your answers. Although you may not have a set format for the job interview, and every job interview is different, there are going to be some questions that are likely to come up depending on the structure, depending on the style. For instance, tell us a time when you've been really successful in something, or perhaps tell us a time when you failed. If somebody asks you, talk to me about some of the biggest challenges that you have faced and how you've overcome them. You do not want to be caught off guard, and you definitely don't want to sit there and go, I haven't faced any challenges. You need to be prepared. The other thing that's really nice about this is by having some pre-prepared answers of what you're going to say and how you're going to say it, you can actually control the structure of the conversation, a bit like a politician does in the Houses of Parliament. If they say to you, tell us what your biggest weaknesses are, don't turn around and say that one of your biggest weaknesses is that you sing too beautifully. But you can turn around and go, well, something that I have been developing in myself recently is, and then talk about a recent development, or something that I've been working on personally is, and then talk about something. You don't need to frame a negative question with a negative answer. So prepare your answers really thoroughly and really carefully. When you get to it, don't sit there and say it like a robot to let them know that you've prepared. Talk like a human, lean in. Maybe if they sit back, you can sit back. We're going to talk about some of these techniques later, but prepare your answers so that when you say them, they sound comfortable, they sound natural, they sound believable, but you don't stutter, you don't stammer, you're eloquent in the way that you deliver them. So that's point number 2, prepare your answers. Point number 3, look the part. This is really important, and get the wording here, it's look the part. That doesn't mean look smart, right? I work in the tech industry. If I turn up with a suit and tie and a shirt and a waistcoat, I will look very out of place very quickly. Most of my day is spent wearing t-shirts and trousers, chinos, whatever it might be, and some shoes. If you're going to an organization that is well established, a bit of a business that's been there for a long, long time, and everybody on the website is wearing a shirt and tie, wear a shirt and tie and a jacket. If you look on the website, you can see that most people are wearing smart casual, business casual. I would encourage you to wear a shirt that's ironed, and if it's cold, a smart jumper, or maybe a blazer or a jacket if you're a man. If you're a lady, wearing a nice formal top that doesn't show too much cleavage and doesn't show too much back but looks presentable, and some nice, trousers or a skirt or shoes, whatever it might be, is a really good middle of the road. But it doesn't mean that because you're going into an interview, you have to dress smart. A lot of the time, people will make their judgments of you based just on the first 3 to 5 seconds of what they can see and then immediately what they can hear. So if you're presenting yourself, you want to look the part, you need to be a good cultural fit for the business. That's crucial. And the same goes if it's a Zoom interview as well. If it's an interview that's being done remotely, either via camera or via phone, you need to make sure that you present yourself well and look the part. Point number 4, stay calm. One of the biggest problems that I come across in my career is that people get really, really nervous and really anxious. They feel anxiety, they feel fear, they feel worry about an interview process. And I do completely understand that. It's perfectly normal and perfectly natural to feel that way, but you don't have to. Here's something to think about when you're having an interview. Sometimes they're worried about losing the job. They're worried about losing the opportunity. Let me put it to you this way. You cannot lose something that you never had. So there's no reason to feel fear or anxiety because you don't have the job yet. If you can get your head around that, you can stay really calm throughout the whole thing. You're going in there. Remember, this company, they want to hire somebody. Chances are, if you're having an interview, they actually might want to hire you, and they're finding out whether the job is as right for you as it is for them. So don't go into it thinking that you're begging or pleading. You can stay calm, you can stay professional, you can stay presentable by remembering that you can't lose something that you never had. They're looking to hire somebody and they've called you forward for interview, which means there's a good chance they might want to hire you. Now, it might get a little bit tricky later on in the process, but remember, stay calm. My 5th point of these top 5 recommendations, hang around for the bonus one. The 5th point here is to ask questions. Now, this actually comes back to the first point that I made about doing research, being prepared, okay? You need to go in there with questions. It's not good enough at the end of it for them to say, do you have any questions? And for you to turn around and say, no, you've covered it. The only instance that it's okay to say, no, you've covered it, is if you have organically been asking them questions throughout everything, at which point I would say, you know what, you were so comprehensive in the interview, every time I had a question, you'd have answered it. Nothing else comes to mind. But is it okay if I get some questions, can I please email you afterwards? That shows that you're going to spend some time thinking about it. It shows that you've been asking questions. It shows that they've answered those questions. It also shows that you're still engaged in the process. So as a wrap up at the end, perhaps you haven't got any questions because they've answered them. Say, you've been so thorough in this interview. Thank you very much. You've answered all the questions that I had at this point. Perhaps I could email you afterwards if anything comes to mind. Something like that would be a really great way to close it. But if you haven't had much of an opportunity to ask questions in the run-up to the end of the interview, you've got to make sure you've got some questions. And you can ask actually some fairly challenging questions. You don't need to be asking them only about, how many people sit in the office or how long the business has been around. You can ask, depending on what the organization is, some challenging questions. You could say, if it hasn't come up, when I was doing my research, I noticed that X competitor is doing Y. Do you view that as being a challenge for the business or an opportunity of an area to expand? You could be asking them, I noticed that there are some reviews on there that look really great about the business, but I did notice some that have been a bit of a challenge. Talk to me, how have staff been able to cope with COVID or with lockdown? How did you deal with X and Y situation? How did you discipline this when if there was a news article, perhaps something came out that was negative about the business and that's a concern for you, you have to ask. You're not begging and pleading. You can turn around to them and say, hey, I'd love a bit more steer about this. How was that dealt with? A question I like to ask a lot deals on culture. And I say, how do you deal with people that are not operating and acting in line with the culture that you want to set within the business? Because that talks a lot about how they discipline people, how they deal with, you know, people that are out of line of the culture. Ask them, how would you describe the culture of this business? Point number 5, ask questions. Right, my bonus tip, the one point that I think you guys would really benefit from. This is in a situation perhaps where you don't necessarily tick all or match all of the criteria on the job advert. And I'll just be really clear, almost no one ever ticks all the criteria on a job application, and that's fine. But if there are some areas that you don't quite fully match up on, deal with them up front. Don't wait, don't try and hide them, don't try and make it seem like they're not there. Lean into it because it shows curiosity, it shows intellect, it shows self-awareness, and it shows that you're looking to improve and develop. For instance, if you were a product manager and they're looking for somebody who also has done product design, say, listen, I've got some great experience doing product operations and product management. Something I've been working on a little bit more is a product design aspects of my background, and I've been taking some design classes in the evenings, or I've been doing additional learning, or I've been working very closely with my colleagues on the design side to help upskill that part. It's something I'm still working on, and I'm wondering, how is the product design team structured at the minute so that I can best make use of that function here? However it is, take what could potentially be a problem, acknowledge it, identify it, and then offer a solution or offer a thought about how you might try and solve it. Because nobody is perfect, nobody has everything, and actually businesses aren't looking for perfect. They're not looking for the complete picture. They're looking for somebody who's smart enough, capable enough, and able enough to identify their faults and move on with them. So my 6th tip for you, my last bonus point, is to say, don't hide your failings, don't worry about your flaws, perhaps even highlight them and make a thing of them and say, this is something I've been working on, this is something I've been really challenged with, this is how I've lent into it, and this is how I'm looking to fix it. Well guys, I hope you found that helpful. I hope you found that useful and enjoyable. If you have any other points that you think are really useful, please post them in the comments below. I am really interested to hear your perspective, and hopefully we can get a bit of dialogue going. If you have other techniques or tips that you think are really helpful for others, please do post them below. I hope your interview goes well. Let me know how you get on with a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.